The NBA Finals are set, but are they already decided? Will the Thunder pair a dominant regular season with a 4-0 sweep, or do the Pacers have one more upset up their sleeves? Plus, are the Knicks set for the next few years, or did they find the ceiling on the Brunson-KAT duo? That and more today on Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Doug Branson, host of Locked On Hornets, and your shot clock Sherpa, guiding you through the NBA's biggest stories with the help of Locked On's local experts. And I have two of the best with me, as always, from the Locked On Nuggets podcast and senior NBA writer for the Action Network. We have Matt Moore. Matt, the last time the Indiana Pacers were in the NBA Finals, the year was 2000. The top song was Maria Maria by Santana. The top film was Mission Impossible 2, and Tiger Woods won his first U.S. Open. What were you doing in 2000?
I was rocking out to Eve 6, driving my Saturn around rural Arkansas, hanging out with my high school girlfriend. Just graduated high school. The future could not be brighter. If only I'd known what wonders awaited me, including Locked On NBA.
And for the Locked On Bulls podcast, we've got Hayes. Hayes, what do you remember about the year 2000? Y2K.
I was still in middle school, so I was just trying to get by. That's what I was doing. Probably every once in a while, sneaking out my parents' house to go to the bowling alley on base. We were living in Mannheim, Germany at that time, so there's that. But yeah, that's it. I was just trying to get by. I had a paper route as a job then. Old school stuff.
A paper route in Germany. That sounds like that's a foreign film. You're made for a foreign film. I love it. Year 2000. I was a paper billionaire thanks to Pets.com stock. Don't look up what happened next. Don't worry about it. I'm still podcasting. All right. NBA general managers voted preseason on the most fun teams to watch, and the top two, the Pacers and the Thunder, are in the NBA Finals. We've got a fun finals, especially if it stays as competitive as we've seen so many of these series be this postseason. Let's hear from both Locked On Thunder and Locked On Pacers on what they believe will tilt the series one way or the other.
I think turnovers. The Thunder generate turnovers better and more often than any other team, and the Thunder score points off of generated turnovers more often and better than any other team. The Pacers really take care of the ball. They don't turn over the ball. Tyrese Haliburton, kind of his calling card is the fact that he is such an elite playmaker and passer without turning the ball over. And he's going to be the one that's, controlling this offense. What breaks here? Something's got to break.
The possession battle is now the thing to me. If the Pacers are even or lose the possession battle in any game against the Thunder, it doesn't matter if the stars are awesome or the depth is good or the Siakam plus bench groups are useful or the third bananas have good games. They're going to be in a hole because Shea's that good and the Thunder are that good.
All right, so Locked On Pacers and Locked On Thunder did not coordinate, but they did agree that the possession battle, the turnover battle, would be the defining factor. Matt, do you agree that that's the factor that's going to be the decider here? And if so, which do you believe in more, the Thunder's ability to generate turnovers or the Pacers' ability to limit them?
Yeah, I mean, this is the battleground. I think it has to be. The regular season matchups are whatever, but one thing that's very notable in them is that it's not like the Thunder created a ton of turnovers and created a ton of points off of turnovers, but it was enough to win the margin. Like, this is the problem is the Thunder are a better team than the Pacers. I'm not being revolutionary by saying that. So you have to find ways to make up the difference. You have to find the margins in order to pull even. And for Indiana, it's shooting. But you can't shoot if you don't have the ball. Like, that's what Indiana wants to do. If they make this into a low turnover series and it turns into shot variance, Hayes, Indiana's got a shot. But, that's what they got to do. Their margin for error is tight. And they're going to have to hit shots. And the Thunder are going to have to miss some open ones. That's a plausible script. but they're going to need all of that to happen in order for them to get there because of how good OKC is overall.
Yeah, they're going to have to play mistake-free basketball completely, and they're going to have to execute on the offensive side. They're going to need Pascal Siakam to step up. He's leading the team in scoring in the playoffs, and they're going to need him to keep that up. But Tyrese Haliburton is going to have himself an amazing, not just a good series. You know, he's been good throughout this playoffs. Make no mistake about it. The Pacers have won games when he hasn't scored a lot. He always has an impact, but I think Tyrese Haliburton is going to have an amazing series to give them a chance to beat the OKC Thunder here. It's just the way that it's going to happen. If he's having the 11-point games or whatever in this series, I don't know how many of those games the Pacers go in against the OKC Thunder. He's going to have to play almost a perfect series here.
Hayes, I got to ask you this because I go back and forth on this. Any year before this one, if you've been like, are turnovers under your control? I've been like, yes. Like, if you just play careful enough, you can avoid turnovers. The Thunder are breaking me of that, where I'm kind of like, I don't know, man. They just kind of take the ball away from you, and then all of a sudden it's in their hands going the other way. Can Indiana control that part of the game?
Only so much, because like you said, the Thunder are so intentional about how they play in those passing lanes, and everybody does it. It's a team thing. Everybody gets in the passing lanes, and it causes them to get out in transition. And once they do, you might as well just hold on at that point, because if they get in rhythm, getting out in transition and off turnovers, it's so difficult to beat them in that case. So no, I think the Thunder have perfected the craft of forcing turnovers in the NBA.
So how have they limited turnovers this season, the Indiana Pacers? Has it been an effect of the pace of play offensively that they've been able to face less defenses that were set? And does OKC have the counter for that?
Yeah, Caitlin Cooper, not Clark, Caitlin Cooper, who everyone loves over covering the Pacers, did a really good breakdown of the advanced passes, and that's going to be a big one here. Is like, can OKC be disciplined enough to get back and disrupt those quick passes out? A good way to counter the stuff is to get into sets quicker, and that's just going to be an endurance battle, and OKC being sharp there. This is going to be the quickest team, not fastest, quickest team that they faced, and so I think that's going to be a real battleground there. The other thing is Draymond Green and Baron Davis on their podcast had a really great breakdown of Tyrese Haliburton's handle, and how it's like, it's really sneaky. You think you can grab it, and then all of a sudden he's able to move past you. Like, a lot of this is just like Haliburton's individual skill as far as being able to manage that. So like, Hayes, to me, if they're going to force turnovers, it's going to be on Nembhard, Siakam, Nesmith, McConnell. The other, like, the role players is where I would target forcing turnovers if I'm OKC.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this is going to who execute better in the half court. So far throughout the playoffs, the Pacers are actually the better half court team when the game actually slows down. They're shooting considerably better than the OKC Thunder. So if they do have to slow it down, they can still be effective offensively. I don't know if I could say the same thing about, they'll still be effective. The OKC Thunder will too, but like, the Pacers have that advantage. If the game does slow down, I think the Pacers have the advantage there. That's just a scary game to play, but that may be key as well to cutting down the turnovers. If you do get rebounds and stuff and slow it down a little bit more against them, as long as you're playing with that rhythm offensively, because that's where the Pacers have a huge advantage at.
All right, the Pacers may not have been anyone's pick to make it out of the East, or many people's pick, but Locked On Pacers says that despite the dominance of the Thunder's regular season, there are reasons to believe in one more upset from Indiana.
12 guys have contributed to this playoff run.
Yeah.
Like, how many draft picks had to hit for them to have 12 guys that could possibly do so? And we need everybody. Like, that includes the coaching staff, who I think is like just the kings of adjustments after these games. Like, it's always so impressive, the things that they are able to come up with after a loss. And like, they always have the answers. They always figure out, like, this is what you guys need to do to solve the problems from the previous game. They beat 3 really good teams and only lost 4 times in this run. You can't count them out. Like, why not the Pacers at this point? Why not the Pacers?
All right, very quickly, Hayes, why not the Pacers? Are we counting them out a little too early? Do you buy a coaching and an offensive depth advantage when you look at guys like Nesmith for Indiana in this series?
I definitely think they have the coaching advantage. That's the X factor in this. Rick Carlisle not only has been maybe the best coach throughout this playoffs, he also has the experience over Coach D on the OKC Thunder side. So I would definitely give them the advantage coaching wise. As far as depth, they're the team that could try to go as far as depth with the OKC Thunder. Not many teams can go that deep. The Pacers can. he's got to see if it's going to be enough against the Thunder.
I'm really curious if Carlisle throws the kitchen sink in game one, because he's got to know what he's up against here, and he wants to settle into series. That's usually the move. I wonder if they got to throw the kitchen sink with zone and a bunch of weird stuff in game one in order to try and steal game one. That to me is the only path here. But if we were talking about like an upset path, I want to make it simpler. It's just shooting. Limit the turnovers, make this into a shooting contest. Pacers number one in effective field goal percentage in the playoffs. Thunder half-court offense, not that great. You make this into a shooting contest, you're live. But they've got to get it into that kind of a script for them to have a chance here.
All right, they'll need big offensive games from Pascal Siakam and Tyrese Haliburton, who are contending were facing each other for Eastern Conference Finals MVP. Siakam won. I want to know if that's the right decision. We'll look at that coming up. Plus, we'll look ahead to the NBA Finals all week long, but I want to take one look back at the series that was between the Pacers and the Knicks. We'll hear from Locked On Knicks as well, and we'll go elsewhere around the association to Phoenix and to New Orleans. That's coming up on Locked On NBA. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Let's circle back to the series that was this weekend. The Pacers close out the Knicks in 6. Close game at half before a 9-0 Pacers run to open the third seemed to break New York's will. Pascal Siakam led the team in scoring with 31, and he takes home the Eastern Conference MVP trophy over Tyrese Haliburton in a close vote, 5-4. Tony East of Locked On Pacers was split as well, making the case for each player in his latest episode. Hayes, was this the right call? Pascal over Tyrese?
Yeah, I think it was the right call in this series. Like, for sure, Pascal Siakam played such an important role both offensively and defensively in this series, and he had some amazing games, a 39-point game, a 30-point game, finished it with a 31-point game. Like, Pascal had himself a series. Not to say that Tyrese Haliburton didn't. He also had a case to win the award as well, but I think it was the right choice going to Pascal here.
Do you know when Tyrese Haliburton should have won this? That's when he should have won this. Look, he was voted most overrated by the players, only 13 players, but still had the highest share. Like, why are we so resistant to the idea that Tyrese Haliburton shapes the game more than almost any other player in the NBA? Like, he's up there for being in the top 10 of that in that category, and he's not 10, 9, or 8. Like, I get it. Siakam was great. I love Pascal. I thought he's been awesome the last 2 years. I thought he was all NBA worthy this year. This should have gone to Haliburton. Haliburton shapes the game more than anybody else. He delivers in the clutch. He's the guy. He's the engine for this Pacers team. They won because of Tyrese Haliburton. Haliburton should have won Conference Finals MVP.
I'll break the tie and agree with Matt. I think this was a total overthink. I think that Tyrese formed the identity that won the series. Like, obviously, Siakam scored more. I think Tyrese, and played, I think, better defense, but Tyrese created more of that offense than Pascal did. But let us know what you think on YouTube, youtube.com/@LockedOnNBA. For the New York Knicks, there will be no trophies, but there will be a debate about how they move forward from here. Are they aloft and ready to contend for the next few seasons, or adrift and in need of another pivot? Here's Locked On Knicks with a grand unifying theory of why they're headed home.
It's just very difficult to win when you play dumb basketball against a team as smart and precise as the Pacers are. And I think the Knicks played a lot of dumb basketball in this series on both ends of the floor. If I was going to have a unifying principle of why they lost, it's that, and maybe a reason the basketball is dumb was just like a lack of coherent identity, while Indiana offensively has about as clear-cut of an identity as any team in the NBA. And the Knicks, like, sometimes stuff works, Alex, but it just feels like they're throwing stuff at the wall and they'll ride the coattails. Like, even Landry Shamet the last few games, that felt kind of random, and it worked. And Tibbs, to his credit, stuck with it. But that wasn't the plan. That wasn't how you played all season. That wasn't the guy you trusted for the most part all season. And I kind of keep coming back to that in terms of why they lost.
All right, on top of that, I will add that Fred Katz, who covers the team for The Athletic, says there was tension in the Knicks locker room around Karl-Anthony Towns' defense. There's a lot of capital, both monetary and draft, invested in this version of the team. Matt, are the issues they have fixable, or do they need to reevaluate the Brunson-KAT pairing in the offseason?
I think coaching can solve this. I don't want to throw Tibbs under the bus here. I really don't. He's a legend in the biz. Everyone respects Tibbs. I just don't think that he's the guy anymore for this team. I think he was the guy under the previous iteration that was like all hustle and let's get a million offensive rebounds and play gritty. This is the modern NBA. They don't take enough threes. They don't generate enough. You have Karl-Anthony Towns and you're not generating enough threes. How is that possible? They don't run a system of offense where you have all these weapons and yet they're running this isocentric Harden type ball with Brunson coming off of a pick and then grifting. No real opportunities for like KAT has to create his own stuff and Brunson's off the court. There's ways to do this, but you're going to need a coach that's going to reinvent this offense and bring the same kind of defensive identity. They've got the horses. They need a deeper bench, a better rotation, and better coaching. And if they can get that, I think that they can make the jump. I think that the problem, is the beating the Celtics is going to give them an unrealistic expectation of who they are. They should have lost that series. It's great that they won, and it shows how vulnerable the Celtics were, but they should have lost that series, and that's what should have brought more change. They need to evaluate this as if they lost to the Celtics because of what it took for them to get past Boston.
How much are you giving them, Matt, a little caveat for the fact that this team did come together just this season, and they even got KAT late into the offseason? Is there any room for growth still in there just with them having a full offseason together?
No, because they went backwards. You remember how good they were with Brunson and KAT in that pick and roll? Over the first 2 months of the season, that was like, oh my God, this is a world killer. And then they just stopped doing it. Now, based off of the Katz thing, I do think that there's I do not think KAT fits with them. And that's a problem. The question is just like, look, I don't know that Rudy Gobert fits with the Wolves, but they made it work. They don't love Rudy, but they win with him. And so, like, that's kind of the question I think you have to ask. Towns, I think, is in a rough spot here. I did not like that article. I think Katz is just doing his job reporting. Fred's an incredible reporter. But the fact that those guys buried Towns, when Towns is like, I didn't ask for this. I never asked for this. I got traded here. We made the conference finals. I play well. What do you want? I thought it was a pretty crappy way to treat KAT after the situation he was put in.
Yeah, I love that afterwards Jalen Brunson did go and say that he trusts his guys and in that team, and he feels they can go further next year. But the thing with the Knicks is that I could see them punting it, just trying to make some functional changes around it to help better support their $8 million beneath the second tax apron next year with none of their biggest names or free agency. So everybody's still locked in. The season afterwards is where they'll have a lot of cap space in that summer of 26. Everybody's kind of set up for. So if they want to forego the summer of 26, then sure, make your move. But if I'm the Knicks, I'm trying to get a key free agent or so, like a supplemental piece, a veteran to add to some depth on the bench. I'm going to give it one more go and see what they have. And then at that point in the summer of 26, that's probably where I make a swing on drastically changing this roster if they don't improve any next year.
Going back to what Matt said about KAT not working, I think like that's the question that hangs over these playoffs and maybe the implication for future playoffs is like, can a team get to a finals when one significant piece doesn't quite work? It doesn't have to not all the way work, but just not quite work. You had Anthony Edwards calling the Thunder 14 guys on a string. Everything about the Pacers screams 12 guys who all know exactly what they're doing and playing within a certain identity. And if you have one piece that isn't working, is that sustainable? Or is the ceiling, okay, everybody plays well and you get to a conference finals? I think that's what we have to kind of see gamed out for the Knicks. And the tough part is they've got so much invested that it's just going to be so hard to pivot off of that. So, all right, let us know what you think on YouTube, youtube.com/@LockedOnNBA. Hit us up in the comments. Coming up, we will take a break from our finals analysis here and move elsewhere in the association. Big news around Zion Williamson and his future in New Orleans. We'll hear from Locked On Pelicans. Plus, the Suns' search for a coach gets narrowed down to 2. What do the names say? And what is the fact that they have Devin Booker heavily involved in those conversations? What does that say about the vision laid out for Phoenix? That's all coming up on Locked On NBA. Thanks again for making Locked On NBA your first listen every single day. Time to go elsewhere in the association. First to New Orleans, where Zion Williamson has been accused of rape and, quote, sexual, physical, emotional, and financial abuse over the course of a multi-year relationship, according to a lawsuit filed in Los Angeles. Here's Jake Madison of Locked On Pelicans with more.
Zion Williamson is facing serious allegations, and no matter if they are true or not, this puts the Pelicans in a no-win situation. Maybe they're fed up with Zion Williamson and the off-court stuff. Now, it's in addition to, the lack of games played on court as well. You might think they shouldn't care, and you could be right on that, but it doesn't matter if that's what the team thinks. There were reports this offseason from Shamit Dua, and I trust his reporting, that there was mandates from Gail Benson to trade Zion Williamson due to the off-court stuff. Now, if you try and trade him, you're going to get a terrible return for him. I don't think his value was sky high around the league in the first place. And this type of stuff for someone who just only played 30 games last season is not going to drive up the price. You could also go a different direction here and waive Zion Williamson. I believe his contract is unguaranteed going forward because of the amount of games that he missed. It gets rid of this. It means we don't talk about the stuff. They don't have to deal with stuff like that, right? Over on Airline Drive. But it doesn't make you a better team.
All right, so we're really early in the evolution of this story and scant on details, but the New Orleans Pelicans have a lot of big decisions to make in the offseason, and they have to make them quickly. Hayes, however this lawsuit plays out, is there a viable future for Zion Williamson in New Orleans moving forward?
I mean, yeah, there's a world in which there's definitely a viable future there. The problem with Zion is that it's easy to point to in stuff like this. You'd want to say, all right, well, the off-court stuff can be a distraction. Let's focus in on the on-court stuff, but he's not on the court enough to just focus on that. And that's a huge problem in all of this on top of this drama. If I'm the Pelicans, I'm looking to move him. If you can't move him, I'm seriously taking into consideration at cutting him. It's already come out that most of the roster is available. I think it's time to just kind of go scorched earth and start anew with the Pelicans is where I'm at.
Sometimes you have to take inextricable elements and you have to extricate them. Like you have to find a way. It's hard, but you have to do that. And then you need to do that in this case. If you feel that these allegations have substance to them, you need to decide what your organization is about. If you want to not be about that kind of culture, which most organizations are not willing to do in professional sports, then you should waive him. You should make the statement, we're not going to stand by this. We believe these allegations have merit. We are unwilling to put up with this on top, and you've got the other off-court stuff on top of it. The on-court stuff is an entirely different question. And the question of culture it supersedes, does it make your team better? Sometimes if you want to build the right culture, you have to do things that don't make your team better. And the fact that so few NBA teams are willing to make that call, so few sports teams globally are unwilling to make that is extremely disappointing. Now, I don't know enough about the allegations to say whether they are or not. If you look at the allegations and you can hire people to do that research, not just Googling, but you do the actual intel on it, and you discover that these are without merit, then make the decision based off of the basketball side of things and your frustration and what's best for your future. But if these allegations have merit to you, make a decision based off of what you think is best for establishing a precedent and a culture for your team, and live with the consequences.
All right, let's now go to Phoenix, where Locked On Suns has an update on their extended search for a head coach and the star power they are bringing to the search committee.
Suns star Devin Booker has had a level of involvement with candidates in this stage of interviews, meaning this final 6 or so, I think is what he's saying there, further illustrating owner Matt Ishbia's loudly stated determination to keep Booker in place as the team's cornerstone. What were your thoughts when you saw this specifically finally stated, something that we had kind of assumed was happening?
It shows that maybe the Suns are doing something a little bit differently this year. I was really surprised that it got such even just some negative pushback, not necessarily by the media, but a little bit by fans. Because if there's anyone that has earned a say in the Suns head coaching search, it's Devin Booker. He's been here for 10 years. He's never left you. The guy who is your number one employee should have some say in the boss, not the full say. His say is just that. It's an opinion. Everyone votes in the room. There's that alignment, right? If you're going to talk about that alignment, it should go down from CEO all the way to number one salesman.
All All right, so the Phoenix Suns have changed coaches a lot, but this is the first time it's been reported that Devin Booker has been involved in these kinds of conversations. Are you good with involving Devin Booker, Matt, in as part of the committee to find a new head coach?
It's fine to involve him as part of the committee. You want his input, especially because you don't want to trade him. So I think involving him keeps him invested in that process. It makes him feel like he lets him know how much you care about his input and that you are committed to him as a franchise icon. I think that's positive. There's a delicate line to walk here. Giannis Antetokounmpo wanted Adrian Griffin, and it has set the Bucks back dramatically because they went from that to an emergency hire Doc Rivers, and here we are. They could have been a lot further off and a lot better off if they hired somebody else. The other candidate, they were looking at Nick Nurse, and I do think that it probably works out a lot better. The other side of this is something like David Fizdale being hired in Memphis, who clashed immediately with Marc Gasol. And that led to Marc Gasol's exit. And that was pretty devastating for the franchise as far as losing that guy. It's good for Gasol. He won a title. You got to balance this. So you want him to be somebody that Booker can sign off on without being the guy that Booker wants. There's a delicate line to walk here. I think having him as part of a committee is smart.
Yeah, I think if you're invested in Devin Booker staying around, then yes, it's smart to have him involved. And it's not that you're giving him the complete say, and that's what Matt's alluding to there. But if he's part of a group that's going to make a decision, vote on that, I have no problem with that. Devin Booker has been committed to that franchise. He hasn't, as far as my knowledge, ever even asked or even flirted with leaving them. So if you're going to return that commitment to him as he's returning to you, yeah, have him part of the committee. It's perfectly fine.
It appears the Suns' head coaching search is down to two names, two Cavs assistants, Jordan Ott and Johnny Bryant. Matt, what do you make of those names as it relates to the vision that Ishbia and company are trying to lay out in Phoenix?
Mark Stein on his Substack reported on these two being part of the final round of interviews on Sunday. And Stein made the most, I think, pertinent observation, which is that Jordan Ott, yeah, he's from Michigan State. So guess who I think is going to wind up with this job?
Who else is from Michigan State? Oh, that's right. It's Matt Ishbia, the owner. Hayes, this was the last game, game 6 between the Knicks and the Pacers, last game on TNT for a while, maybe ever. How do you feel about its legacy as an entertainment product in the NBA?
I mean, it's been around basically my whole entire life for the most part. Like I barely remember a time of watching basketball without them being a part of it in some shape, form, or fashion. So it sucks, to be quite frank, but I'm glad they're going to be moving over to ESPN. I don't know how much is going to change or not with the network switch, but it doesn't feel right. They're an institution. They're part of basketball, so it feels a little weird to be.
Well, that's the question, Matt. Can it truly stay the same moving to another network, particularly a network as controlled as ESPN tends to be?
Yeah, that's the difference here. Is like they had free reign to do what they wanted, how they wanted, and you can't do that on ESPN unless you're Pat McAfee. So they have other restrictions and policies in place that are going to kind of limit that. I'll just tell you this, though. Inside's been dead to me a long time. I think Shaq is an incredible entertainer and a really great voice and one of the best players in NBA history, and I have very fond memories of his playing time. I have not liked the show since he was added. It turned in from a show about basketball into a comedy show featuring 3 guys yucking it up, and it became more about itself than the game. And that's what I'm hoping we get back to next year. Is they got to find ways to find a panel that gets back to it's a great entertaining show about the NBA as opposed to being inside the NBA. That's the change they need.
So I kind of agree with you, Matt, that it needs a rival. Like that's what you need, something that offsets it. So hopefully with Amazon and NBC coming into the mix, it seems like NBC may be committing a little bit towards the analytical side of the game, towards, taking you a little bit deeper into the storylines and actually paying attention to the game. I think there's room for both of those things to exist, but they've both got to exist. And ESPN never, with their construct, was never able to form a formidable rival.
It's going to be interesting because it's like NBC's like, we're taking the game seriously. We're doing all this stuff. Oh, also we hired Gilbert Arenas. And I'm like, that's a contrast in takes there, Hayes.
Yeah, Gil. I have my takes on Gil, but my mom taught me a long time ago, if you don't have nothing nice to say, just be quiet. So I'm just going to shut up on Gilbert Arenas.
You lying? Unless it's about the Clippers or the Cavs, my man.
Everybody welcomes Clippers slander. I'm sorry. Everybody welcomes that. What are we talking about? No, I do think you're going to have a rival. You're going to have competition. That's always when just about anything in entertainment is best, is when you have a rival. Luckily, they do. Just tell Locked On to invest, because we're right here.
That's right. And if you like what you heard today, go ahead.
The big key is that the difference there is that the Clippers will not tell Hayes to pick one. That's the big difference there. It's a deep river. Deep cut.
If you like what you heard today, subscribe to Locked On NBA wherever you get podcasts, including YouTube. We do it all. We yuck it up. We do a little bit of analysis. We have it all. Thanks to Matt and Hayes for their expertise every single day. Thank you for making Locked On NBA your first listen. For your second listen, make sure you're checking out Locked On NBA Game Night. It's every game, every night until an NBA champion is crowned. They're going to have recaps on all of the finals games. Get that local analysis on a national scale. Make sure you're checking out Locked On NBA Big Board as well for all of your draft analysis from Rafael Barlow and company. The finals, they're 3 sleeps away. Be kind to each other. We'll see you right back here tomorrow for more on Locked On NBA.